Put down your baby and pick up a beer. Dad Jokes is back with the brand new episode. I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you're listening to the podcast of two first-time dads going through the journey of fatherhood with all of you listening. And we got a special episode that's been rescheduled a couple times this week, Brandon. And we're on a little bit late tonight, but you know what? We're following a Pistons win, and that's exciting because we don't see a lot of Pistons wins, at least not in the last decade or so. So we'll take the late night recording for the Pistons W's. Decent trade-off.
Yeah, we probably won't see a lot of the wins for them this year either. This is they played one of the probably four teams that are worse than them. So I still got my suit jacket on from work, Jerry. Came straight from a Pistons watch party. We ready to go.
I like it. So before we get into this week, which it's a very fun topic this week, we're going to be talking about tantrums. But before we get into all of that, Brandon, let's hear a dad joke. You got a dad joke for us?
I do. What happened to the man who got behind on his payments to his exorcist?
He lost his head.
He got repossessed.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty good. We're going Halloween theme all month long.
All month long with the Halloween. I don't think mine's Halloween this week, but I'm not mad at it. I think that's decent. And Halloween's
I told the people that's what I was doing.
Yeah, Halloween's a good topic too. We might be talking
next week's joke might be R-rated though.
I don't know. Sometimes your R ratings and your PG-13s are off. But I feel like that's accurate in real life. Even when you watch a movie, sometimes you're like, I don't know why this is rated R, and then other times you're like, well, I don't know how this isn't rated R. So, we'll see. I also think it's amazing, speaking of, kind of topical with kids and stuff, back in the day, there was no PG-13, so it was either PG or R, so they didn't have a lot of leeway, so there was a lot
that's like the dad fact of the day.
Yeah, so a lot of PG movies that were, so if you're watching old movies, Brandon, be careful before I start showing them to Bryce, because you might be surprised at what's in them, because unless it was bad enough to be rated R, it was going for that PG rating. G's okay, but PG, you might get a little sketch.
This is how strict my parents were growing up. We've gone over like the shows I wasn't allowed to watch, like Hey Arnold, Rugrats, things like that, SpongeBob. But we had a box. My mom went to family Christian stores, and they sold this box that hooked into your cable box, and it would filter out like cuss words.
I know what you're talking about.
Legit. And this is this is in like 99. Like, this is cutting edge technology. But it was like a family safe box that would cut out.
Did it bleep it, or did it
it went silent? It went silent. I don't even know how this thing worked. Like, it's tapping into like the cable feed, because this isn't from like. So at that point, what that allowed us to do is rent movies that were like borderline PG-13 at Mammoth Video or Family Video at the time. But it was shout out to Blockbuster too. Those were my old stomping grounds. But yeah, I forgot the name of that box. I need to look that up. It was pretty.
I know what you're talking about. I remember hearing about that. We did not have one, but I remember hearing that. It's funny though, because your parents were super strict. Mine were decently strict. But the funny part about having lots of siblings like I did is their level of strictness just started to deteriorate. So they were still decently strict with me, but by the time I got to my brother, I swear he was like 10 doing whatever he wanted. I felt like he was being able to do stuff before even I was. Like, he was younger than me, and he still was allowed to do stuff I wasn't. It was crazy.
I wasn't allowed to have like a girlfriend all the way through high school. My brother, I think I said this on the podcast, but my brother would bring girls home in like the 8th grade, and they were his quote unquote friends. And I actually think they were his friends, but like, he went to school with dances and like early. I wasn't allowed to do that. I don't know if it's because, hindsight being 2020, they probably made the right decision, because I was a little bit more devious than he was, and he literally was like innocent, and I wasn't. But he used to get under my skin, so I got sneaky.
There you go. I like it. So Brandon, what's been going on in your guys' household the last week or so? What's been going on with Bryce?
So Bryce had another trip, and this one was a little bit more special, to a cider mill. His mom grew up in Grand Rapids, and there is a local apple orchard there called Robinette's that her family went to all the time. Kelsey and I would go there every year while we were dating, sometimes a couple times a year, because it was right up the road from where she grew up. So last year, that was his first cider mill that he went to. And this year we went again. He drank cider, got donuts, loved it. And then we took some pictures in some pretty much the same spot that we took him in last year. And we're going to start doing it kind of year over year. And the crazy thing, we didn't even realize we did this, but she got a notification while we were there. It was the exact same day last year that we went. So it was literally 365 days later. So we got some cool side-by-side pictures of Kelsey and Bryce from 1 year later. It was kind of crazy to see the difference in the two. But part of the reason we were in Grand Rapids is because both of his aunts were in town on Kelsey's side, one from California, one from Chicago. So he spent a lot of time with family over the weekend. The kid is just talking nonstop. He's doing like this cute thing now where he has a bunch of little stuffed animals. He has a bunch of giraffes too, but he has this kind of small giraffe that's almost his size, and he like will go up to it, grab it, cuddle it, and hug it like around the neck, kind of lay with it, and then we'll have full blown conversations with the stuffed animal.
Oh yeah,
I have no idea what he's saying, but it's like it's very entertaining and cute. And kind of with that said, I'm noticing he's doing way better with like independent play. You can kind of just be around, and he'll play with himself for that sounded weird, but play by himself for like hours. So it's really fun.
that's good. Yeah, that's definitely good. I would say that Peyton is not quite there with the independent play. She definitely wants you still involved or wants to come over to where you are. She will play by herself sometimes, but it's more hit and miss. She's been obsessed with our remote for our lamp in our living room lately. And today, just a little bit ago, so she always grabs it and plays with it. And it's like the one remote we don't care that much about because it just turns the lights on and off. So who really cares, right? But she's literally crawling from me, which I'm on the couch, all the way into the kitchen to where Macy is with it in her hand still. Like, as she's crawling, she's not letting it go. She's trying to, so it's like conflict. Like, what are you doing? Like, this can't be easy. But, like, she's like, I'm not willing to give this up, but I want to see what's going on over here. So, she's definitely still obsessed with things she's probably not supposed to have. But we had an interesting last week or so. I actually went and visited my brother, which is Peyton's godfather. He lives in Seattle, so I flew out there and visited him for a few days so that I could see his new place and see what's going on out there. That was a lot of fun. I got to see the city. I'd never been out there. Do a lot of fun things, but it was a couple days away from Peyton and Macy, and it was weird because I've done it a few times where we've been away, but this time was a little bit different. I think it was more difficult for me this time, even though it was short, because I feel like she's older now, and so I felt like she noticed that I was gone, and then she also had a couple nights while I was gone where she did not sleep well at all. And so my alarm on my phone was going off with the Nanit letting me know she wasn't sleeping well, and that was stressing me out. So it was a great trip, but I will say that I probably stressed out more about being gone on this trip than I had previously. And it's crazy. I know it sounds bad saying it this way, but I much rather, when she was sleeping bad, been at home to be able to do something about it than be thousands of miles away, and just I felt like helpless because I'm just watching the phone knowing like, oh, Macy's probably struggling and she's upset, and I'm like, and I couldn't do anything. So that was a little bit tough, but I came back.
Well, that's the big thing too. You feel for your partner.
Yeah,
it's like how tough it is, and that's something that they're going through in real time. And meanwhile, you're trying to have like kind of guilt-free fun.
Yeah,
it's a weekend, but it's tough at the same time because you're
and it's a 3-hour time difference. So if at 10 o'clock my time when I'm in Seattle, I see the Nanit going off. It's 1 a.m. So that's bad. But it's not like I'm asleep where I don't notice it or something. Obviously, it's kind of in your face too. But it was a good trip. It was good to see my brother, and when I came back, it was definitely fun to see Peyton. And she's been weird with sleep lately. She did good for a few nights, and then was horrible tonight. It took her an hour and a half to go down. It's been weird. Like, she's not not been consistent. Sometimes she's good. Sometimes she wakes up once and it goes right back down. Sometimes she wakes up a couple times. Sometimes she doesn't go down well. Sometimes she does. It's just the last little bit's probably been the least consistent she's been with sleeping for a long time. Normally, even if she has bad spells, it's like, okay, it's a bad spell, then we get out of it. Now, you don't really know what you're going to get from night to night. So it'll be interesting. She struggled to go down tonight, so we'll see if she sleeps through the night or not. But the sleep's been hit and miss. And then during the day, she's been kind of hit and miss too. She's been good sometimes, bad sometimes. Definitely still very, very clingy with mom. Wants to be on Macy at all times. But she's also a lot of fun right now, and she's making tons of faces, has tons of personality, definitely picking up on a lot of things. She starts to almost sing different songs, which is kind of funny. Like there's there's like a puppy dog pals. Anyone that's heard that, like the song, she kind of does the put like when she hears that, and so that's kind of fun. Definitely likes to dance. So overall it's been a good week, but she's been like I said, a little bit inconsistent. I think maybe she's getting out of that last leap, and so she's kind of learning new skills and trying to figure out what that all means. Because I feel like she doesn't know sometimes. She goes from happy to sad very quickly lately. So good.
Yeah,
good
I
bad.
think we went through something similar with sleep around this time with Bryce too, and it's tough because and I think you guys experienced this. You've had like a good stretch for a while, and then it almost seems like there's a regression, and it is literally a regression. But then it does get better, luckily, as we'd been going through it, and then you might have a downturn again. It's kind of just the name of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and something we talked about, even earlier this week, we're dealing with it. I don't think quite as much as you guys, but the whole 2 naps thing is a little bit of a, I don't want to say an issue, but some days she does great with 2 naps. Some days she only wants to take 1. Some days they're short, some days they're long. So even the consistency with naps is kind of all over the place. We've been really trying to stick to our schedule and to the 2 naps, and for the most part, it's gone well. Like today, she took 2 solid naps over an hour and 15 minutes each. But there's just random days. Like I think it was yesterday, Macy texted me, and she's like, she's just not going down for this first nap. So that can be tough too. I know you guys dealt with a little bit of the 2 nap issue at this age.
Yeah, well, the first nap was never really a problem. It seems like we can always get him down for the first nap, but my parents were struggling getting him down for a second nap consistently, and luckily the last few days have been great. They've been able to kind of nip that in the bud a little bit, but it's the trouble is he's legitimately tired around the time that he needs to take his first nap, but he's fighting them around the time for the second nap, but that turns into him being up for basically 12 or like 8 to 9 hours, excuse me. So that also is tough on us because we pick him up or Kelsey will pick him up. He's good for the first little bit, but as soon as 5:30 hits, he turns into a completely different kid and starts acting like the topic that we're going to be talking about today. So that's something that we can absolutely tell the difference when he takes a nap versus when he doesn't. So that tells us he still needs it. Because the other side of it is, and we are about a month or 2 away from, based on what we saw, when we may start reducing that second nap. But it's definitely not now, and he definitely still needs his 9 to 10 nap as well. So
yeah, the morning nap seems to be easier
progress
for us too. Every once in a while she gets, but that second nap, and that's what they say is actually normal. Is usually the second nap's the one that they tend to fight. But hey, I'll take 2 naps over 1 nap as a parent any day. So we'll keep doing the 2 naps as long as it makes sense for sure. But Brandon, what about baby gear? You got any baby gear that you want to go over this week?
I got a great piece of baby gear. This thing has been so clutch. So there is a 3-piece suction cup spinner toy. And what this does is basically it's just Bryce is really into spinning things. He's into like throwing, like he'll play catch with me for like 30 minutes. The kid actually is pretty accurate. I know I sound like that dad right now, but his favorite thing to do is kind of spin stuff or play with like door stops and things like that. So Kelsey bought these suction toys that spin. And you can put them, like we got one on our sliding glass window that goes out to the deck. We put one, he's infatuated with being in the kitchen with mom, so we put one on the refrigerator. And he'll sit there and just have the time of his life, just spinning these toys back and forth. They also make them for like bath time and things like that as well. But that's definitely been he'll sit there in front of that toy for 10, 15 minutes at a time, and just all you hear is him giggling to himself and like making a bunch of happy noises. So if you want to buy some time, it's only $10 on Amazon for 3 of them, and you'll probably get a few hours additional a week of supervised. That'll be kind of the babysitter while you're getting stuff done around the house.
It is funny too when they you mentioned kind of playing catch with Bryce, when they figure out kind of how catch works. Like Peyton recently kind of figured out like, oh, I can hand toys to people or I can throw toys at people, but she thinks like tossing stuff is hilarious. So like she'll throw like a stuffed animal, like a little one, or like her pacifier, and just start cracking up, and then you just kind of toss it back at her, and she just starts laughing. She doesn't quite get the catching part yet. She just thinks it's funny that you threw it at her, and then she like will throw it right back. But she does it to the dog too, and the dog just like looks at her, and she thinks it's hilarious. Like, oh, I threw the pacifier at the dog's face. So that's funny.
That is what's funny. I'm waiting for these dogs to figure out the kids, because I feel like they're still like Riley is still. He's almost he's interested in Bryce, but he's also indifferent. I feel like Bryce just like really annoys the crap out of him. Mm-hmm. And Bryce actively wants to play with Riley. Like he'll crawl up to him, he'll bark at him. He can say like Rye, like he says like Rah. And sometimes I think he's saying Riley. Sometimes I think he's barking at him. I can't really tell the difference. And he'll take a ball and throw it. But the problem is half the time, and we've kind of blurred the lines a little bit. But a lot of Bryce's toys Riley wants to play with, but we don't let him. But all of Riley's toys Bryce wants to play with, and they kind of get mixed in the bunch. So I feel bad for him to a degree, because it has to be pretty confusing.
Yeah, no.
Really hard to police, though.
It is. Peyton is definitely, she's always been infatuated with Raja, but lately she's like not hesitant at all. So she'll just be climbing all over her and like grabbing her face and doing crazy stuff. And Raja's great with it, but she just kind of like lays there like, what'd you guys do to me? Why'd you bring this human home?
Exactly.
But the one thing that Peyton's doing lately that I am not a fan of is, before she was always kind of infatuated with Raja's like water dish and food, but it was more like just to kind of like go near it and maybe touch it. No, she's legit trying to eat the dog food lately. And so that's not fun.
Welcome to the club, Jerry.
So she'll like grab a handful the other day, and I was like, no. I had to like run, because she was definitely about to put a whole handful of kibble in her mouth. But I stopped her in time. But that's definitely probably happened once or twice. I won't say under whose watch. But.
Shout out to Jonathan, our listener, because I hit Bryce with the and he'll turn around, he'll puff his bottom lip out, he'll cry and crawl to you. But he gets away from the dog stuff when you do that.
Yeah, Payne don't care. I'll do that, and she'll look at me like, okay, cool. She legit don't care. I've made noises. I'll clap. I'll be like, no, and she just kind of looks at me.
She's got your personality.
She's just like, there's food here. I don't know what you're clapping at, but I'm going to go ahead and eat this now. So that's just.
Hey, you spend a lot of money on that dog food, Jerry.
Yeah, kidding.
It's probably good
right?
for her.
Exactly. Well, and Raja just randomly decides she doesn't want to eat for like a couple days, so someone might as well eat it, right? Because my dog, it makes no sense when she eats. She's the only dog in the world that like doesn't eat on schedule.
I'm sure Peyton will.
Yeah. No, it's great. But as far as baby gear goes, Brandon, we don't have anything too crazy. I will say that Amazon had like a random kind of Prime Day thing or early access sale, and they had a bunch of stuff on sale, so we bought a few things, including another car seat.
From the devil.
Yeah, it did. We bought another car seat because my mom was like, yeah, I might need one, maybe, kind of. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to buy it, and if you don't want it, we'll return it, because I don't want to, like, you need to have it, and then all of a sudden we were switching car seats every 10
You bought
seconds.
her that super fancy one that you guys have, right?
I bought her one that was on sale for Amazon early access days, but I bought her. But another thing that was on sale that I didn't buy, Brandon, but this is a topic we're going to do. I'm telling everyone now, there's going to be an episode. I'm actually excited for it. Brandon's going to be excited for it. We're going to do an episode on wagons. We've talked about them here before, but we're going to do some research, and there was one on sale pretty heavily, and we almost bought it, but we didn't. But I think wagons are crazy. Like I never realized it until I became a dad, and there's more people with wagons than strollers if you go to like heavily populated areas with kids. I swear, if you look around, it's crazy to me. Like I've been a couple places and there's people with wagons everywhere, and there's a large market for it now. Whoever cashed in early on that, props to you, because I never would have thought, hey, let's take this wagon and mass sell it to people for lots and lots of money. But they've done it. And I'm going to be one of those suckers, and I guarantee Brandon is too, whether he wants to admit it or not. He's going to have a wagon.
I'll tell you one thing. We're getting close. It's getting cold outside, so that wagon's at least going to wait until spring.
That's why we waited. Before I'm like, we can at least hold off for a little while longer, see if a sale happens, see if they come out with something crazy new thing.
This is the problem, Jerry. You and I both are the same. We start doing this research. We're going to do the episode on it. We're going to have like a top 3 to 5 wagon probably, and we don't really like. We're gonna make a top 5. Why the heck would we go with the 5th one on the list?
We're not gonna.
When we can go with the first one on the list, and the first one on the list is gonna cost like $800.
Oh, well, that's why the one right now, number 1 on my list, and I won't go into too much, but it's not, and that's what I like about it. It's not cheap, but it's not one of those crazy ones that's $800 or $700. So that's why I think we need to educate the listeners and also talk about some different options, because there is a wide range, and there actually is different needs and purposes based on where you live, how many kids you plan on having, and whatnot, or so that will be important. But Brandon, I did stumble across a baby fact this week that I thought was very interesting. So I think I might share that. But did you have a baby fact before I did that?
I don't. Go right ahead.
So Bryce is 1 now. Peyton's a little over a month away. And they say the typical 1-year-old knows about 70 words. Knows, not can say, but knows about 70 words. But what's crazy...
I was about to say, Bryce is behind.
No, not can say, just knows. Because first time I read it...
He can say about 7.
The first time I heard it, I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, knows, okay. But the actual interesting fact is that by 18 months, they say that they learn a new word every 2 waking hours, which is kind of crazy. So every 2 hours they're up, they learn a new word when they're 18 months. So you're a little way away from that.
It's crazy to think about, but it makes sense when you think about it.
It does, but that's kind of exciting because you're coming up on that. But that's a stage where just, man, you can start teaching them everything, and they start they're like a sponge. Not that they're not now, but they.
I just want the kid to say "Dad," Jerry.
Oh,
I keep thinking I hear it. But then he won't repeat it. He'll like say it once, look at me, wink at me, and then won't say it again. So I can't really prove it.
See, and I got, I'm not to brag, but I've got dad, daddy, all of them, and da. She likes da. She just says da sometimes.
No, it drives me crazy. That kid can legit say probably close to 10 words, maybe more, and none of them are dad.
He's gonna say like yellow or something crazy before he says.
He'll take. He even has context. Like if I walk out of a room, he'll say bye. But
he won't say
will
dad.
not say
bye,
dad.
Dad.
I legitimately. So things my wife said. Kelsey looked at me as I was walking out of the house today and said, because he told me bye as I left, and so I think he thinks your name is Bye because he says that all the time. So Bye is the new dad.
Well, that'll work. Oh, there's sad somewhere in there, some sad story or something.
It's sad. It's sad. Bye.
Speaking of sad, Brandon.
Dad's never there.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
I know. I just said it.
But speaking of sad, our today's topic is one that's kind of sad, and it's something that I didn't think we'd be talking about at this stage, but we are, and that is tantrums. And call me naive, but I thought tantrums were things for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. But apparently, you can have tantrums before you're even 1. And I know this because I've seen it. And I also know this because you mentioned it to me before. Now, they're not quite as elaborate probably as a 2 or a 3-year-old's, but you can have tantrums. So
it depends.
Well, that's true too. Also context. But so Peyton's had a few of these, what I would call a tantrum. In most of the time, it's either when we don't let her have something she wants, like she's trying to grab something and you take it away, or like one of us put her down and she does not want to be on the ground. And it's kind of funny, but also kind of not funny. But like what she'll do is, like, let's say I go to set her down and she doesn't want to be down. She won't even sit. She'll instantly throw herself back, arms spread out, head back, and just start screaming and kicking and just like the world is ending, like she's in pain almost because you had the audacity to put her down, or you had the audacity to not let her grab the thing that's gonna burn her or choke her or whatever. So not a ton of them, but she's had, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these so far, and usually they're short-lived. But that's been my experience with tantrums thus far. What's been your experience, Brandon?
So for us, it really, and they're short when they come, but I'd say he throws one at least once a week at this point. But it's really when he's told no more than anything else at this stage. So and kind of what we do is we'll correct what he's doing or tell him not to do it, and then give him his space to kind of freak out a little bit. And he normally will crawl over to Kelsey or myself while he's crying and throwing a fit, and then we pick him up. And I think at this point, this is what I really think is going to happen, Jerry. Because we've done the research. We're going to talk about tantrums and go into a little bit more detail. But I bet that you and I both get a year from this, and like what they're doing wasn't really a tantrum. They were kind of freaking out a little bit, but I think we're going to really hit the tantrums in a little bit based on what we've seen. I would say he definitely is getting to the point where he knows what he wants and is upset when he doesn't get it. But I'd say the worst that something comes is when he's tired.
Yep.
If he's overtired, then it becomes like an inconsolable cry. That I would classify as like a mini tantrum, and then you almost just gotta. Sometimes I can't even do anything about it. Kelsey has the magic touch, and she'll get him to calm down. Sometimes this happens in the middle of the night at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to do everything I can, and it doesn't necessarily work. But if he's overtired or overstimulated or has been told no, especially around the dog bowl, you're definitely gonna get him kind of freaking out on you a little bit.
Yeah, and you're probably right about what we're gonna think a couple years from now. But for the definition purposes of a tantrum, it's basically what they say when a kid, through a number of different actions, expresses themselves because they don't know how to express themselves, right? So that's why I would classify as a tantrum, because clearly when Peyton's doing this, she doesn't know what to do. So she doesn't know what to do. So that's how she's expressing herself, because she's upset, and that's the way for her to know, let you know. And for us, it's always obvious because, like I said, because most of the time when she's upset, she'll cry. She'll still be sitting, right? Or she'll be crawling, or she'll be trying to walk towards you, use the furniture. But when she's in a tantrum, she just literally sprawls out. She's not even trying to look for you or get to you or anything. She's just letting you know she's upset. So, but that's kind of what a tantrum is. And how you deal with the tantrum or what they recommend is going to depend on their age. So at this stage, Brandon, for like us, the big things are trying to calm them down, what you can do by distracting them, by picking them up, by giving them something else to do or play with or pay attention to. Because at this age, a lot of times something quick like that will get them right off the tantrum. And if you talk to them and tell them, hey, you can't be throwing a tantrum because whatever, they're not going to really get it, right? So a lot of it goes into that distraction mode or trying to alleviate the situation. Or if they're, super tired and stuff like that, getting them calmed down so they can get the rest. But that's kind of this stage. When you get older, it shifts more into, calming them down and then talking about the behavior, telling them why you're doing what you're doing, and then kind of, helping to maybe correct the issue going forward. But consistency becomes very, very key, especially the older that they get, because you can't one time give in. If you give in, then they're going to think that they're going to get that by that action time and time again. You know what I'm saying, Brandon?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's part of it's kind of two different things. You have what do you do when the tantrum's actually happening, and that's basically if you're in the middle of it you acknowledge it, and then you kind of look away, let it dissipate, and then once they're old enough to understand, have a conversation about what happened and why. But the big thing is to kind of let them know that's not okay, but also let it kind of run its course, because you're not necessarily going to get through during the time, and that's going to be the number one thing that's tough for me to be able to handle, is like kind of watching this happen. I'm not sure how I in real time am going to respond to that once Bryce is old enough to understand. But a lot of the things that you look at, say you if you are in the middle of one, you have to almost let it happen after you address it initially. But you also have, how can you make the tantrums less likely, or what are some things you can do to prevent it? And you hit on a couple of them, but like you can identify some of the triggers, especially kids our age. If they're getting overtired or tired, you obviously, as much as possible, avoid that. Hunger can lead to tantrums. If a child is potentially in a position where something scares them, a lot of times that will trigger it. And then if they're overstimulated. So if you can, and we do this in our everyday lives, but planning, like, I mean, we plan our days around like our kids' naps, or if we're making trips, you plan that around like their sleep schedule, things like that, and you make sure you have enough to eat. Watching the cues before it happens can get you out of that situation too.
Yeah, so one thing I read was it's key when dealing with tantrums is to not give into unreasonable demands. And that kind of hit the nail on the head for me, because basically, if your kid's throwing a tantrum because one of their basic needs isn't being met, not that it's okay to throw the tantrum, but that's where, as a parent, you kind of, like you said, can kind of cut it off, or at least alleviate the situation. Like if they're super hungry, okay, well, at least there's a reason for it. Or if they're, overtired, there's a reason for it. If they're throwing a tantrum because they didn't get, the red car instead of the blue car in their Happy Meal, okay, less reasonable. That's what you have to decide as a parent. Okay, what is this tantrum? Is this a behavior that's, I don't want to say your fault, but a little bit, on you as a parent, or is this something that you just need to correct so that doesn't happen again in the future? And then, that's when you talk to them at kind of their level, and that's when you kind of try to explain situations, not while they're having the tantrum. You kind of, like you said, you got to let the tantrum run its course, but then you got to be able to communicate with them after the fact, so that it doesn't happen again. But if you give in to those unreasonable demands, they're going to continue to do it, because it's like anything else. Like, okay, well, doing this got me what I wanted, so why wouldn't I do it again? So that's when you have to stick to your guns. And you can even, depending on their age, talk to them about a solution, like what, how can we make this better, or what's going to make you happy? Because especially if they're wanting something that's just not possible, like, okay, we can't have that because of this. What can we do? So, but when they're super young, like they are right now, it's like it's getting through them, and then trying to get them their needs met, so that they're not throwing tantrums for no reasons whatsoever. But there is also a little bit of not giving to unreasonable demands, even at their age now. Like if Peyton's throwing a tantrum because she can't have something that's going to hurt her, like a knife or something, you're not going to just give her the knife, right? So you're going to tell her, no, you can't have this. And then, yes, maybe you give her a different toy or something like that, but you're not going to just give in just because your kid wants something. Otherwise, you're going to have
you absolutely don't want to give in. That's basically is going to confirm the behavior that you don't want to have anyway. The other thing that's super important is, like, this same conversation you and I are having. One, make sure that you're on the same wavelength as your partner. But if someone's watching your child, they have to have the same or practice the same discipline that you do. So you can't have something different at grandparents' house or aunt and uncle house or at daycare than you do at home, because that's also, if the kid can get away with something someplace, that could become a learned behavior that's even that much more difficult to handle. And setting the groundwork now will, I think, help us to where we may be able to, it's not going to be 100%, but we may be able to avoid some of those 2 and 3 year old tantrums that come if you stay consistent, even with some of what will be ultimately small things that we deal with right now.
That's a great point, Brandon. You know, consistency between parents and also caregivers. You got to have that. And then the other thing too that I know sometimes I feel like I'm gonna struggle with just because I don't always have the greatest patience. But you as a parent can't necessarily blow up when they're blowing up. That's just not gonna be probably the most healthy or productive for them. And also, you know, kids are like sponges and they pick up on things. And if you're loud or upset and overreact, that's going to be their tendency sometimes too, because that's how you're expressing yourself. So it's important in those situations, as hard as it might be, to try to stay calm. And that's when, you know, you need to work with your partner, work with, you know, just taking a moment or whatever helps keep you calm, because it can be tough. Like even tonight, like I know I was trying to put Peyton to bed and she was just screaming. Like she never does this for me. Normally she's always calm. Even if she ends up waking up and screaming, she's not doing it while I'm rocking her, and I'm rocking her and she's acting like she's dying. And it was hard not to be super, super frustrated, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on, you know? And then Macy came in and it was almost the same thing. But again, that was where it was like, okay, I know that probably Macy should hold her for a little bit. And then afterwards, but we'll go back to it, because you don't want to blow up on them. You don't want to show them bad habits as a parent either.
No, absolutely not. It's you got to stay consistent, and that ultimately will help everybody in the long run.
Yep. And unfortunately, Brandon, I think this is something that we're going to deal with for a very, very long time, because I've seen teenagers throw tantrums.
And it's also easier said than done. I'll tell you this. Hey, are we saying all this? I got a teenager in the house throwing a tantrum. All these rules go out the window. We're going chest to chest. It ain't. Nah, I'm out on the teenagers throwing tantrums.
You never threw a tantrum as a teenager?
I don't know if I call it a tantrum. We definitely got into some. Me and my dad once a year, we'd be good 364 days a year, and then there'd be like, actually let me rephrase it. We'd be good 355 days a year, but there'd be about 10 days randomly we may like have some words, and then there'd be like a 3-day stretch that stuff just builds on top of each other. And then when I got in high school, I feel like it always culminated in something. And my senior year, we got into an argument, and it ain't no cussing in the Banks household. I just want to let y'all know. In the Banks household that I grew up in, let me rephrase.
I was like, I've been in your household.
but when we got into one, and my mom used to always have my back kind of when we got into it. And she like, leave him alone, Rick, leave him alone. We got into one. I looked at him, and I told him that I was sick of his poop. And I dropped another word too. And I swear my mom looked at him like, get him, Rick.
And she was always got pom-poms out.
That part's an exaggeration, but the sympathy went out the window. We definitely got into it. And that could have been considered a tantrum, but I thought I was justified in my
you always do. You always do. Yeah, I definitely
still do, Jerry.
Oh, you still do. You still do. But yeah, no, I can relate to that too. So we're going to be dealing with it for a while, but it's picking up on tricks, and every kid's different too. How, you know, you deal with Bryce and tantrums might be different than how I deal with Peyton, and it might not even be just parenting styles. It could literally be because the kids are different, right? So you're going to probably parent them a little bit differently. So learning your kid, and
I definitely, and you definitely have strong-willed young kids.
Gosh.
I can already tell.
Yes.
Bryce, I love him. He going to be a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Not a problem, a problem.
Uh-huh. Peyton's definitely got. She's giving me a run for my money already. She's got everyone who meets her. That's the first thing they say. She's got so much personality. I'm like, yeah, she does. I don't know if that's always the best thing. Usually it's the best thing, but sometimes, man, she will let you know if she doesn't like or does like something, and she's got no chill. And sometimes it's funny because, like, usually Macy's the patient one and I'm the one who's short on patience. But sometimes I catch myself being the patient one because Macy doesn't like that kind of behavior because she was never like that. And she's like, why? She's like, why are you being rude? I'm like, she don't know. she'll be straight mad at her. She'll be like, she's being so rude right now. I don't like the behavior. That's not nice behavior. And I'm like,
I can hear Macy saying that too. That's
she had like food the other day, for example, and we're getting ready to like feed her, and she's in her chair. and the food's hot, right? So Macy's trying to blow on it, and Peyton's throwing a fit because she can see it, and she's like, I want my food now. You know, she's like banging on the table, like almost like yelling at her, like, ah. And Macy's like, wait a second. And she's all like, why are you being rude? I'm like, okay. Let me handle this. Let me feed her for a second, because
she has a point.
She does, and it does get frustrating.
Both of them do, actually. Peyton's like, "Yo, give me my food. Don't put it in my face."
Yeah, she would have took a bite and burnt her tongue, and the world would have ended.
Yeah.
And then we really would have seen the tantrum.
You got to let them burn, Jerry. Sometimes.
All right, Brandon, you ready for this dad joke?
I'm ready for your lame joke.
Wow, you just coming in with preconceived
It didn't come
notions.
from Nolan.
It didn't. By the way, my nephew Nolan, he has very long hair. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Brandon. I think you have seen pictures. Like very long hair.
I've seen him in person as well, Jerry.
It's been a while though. But yes, he cut it. Like cut it.
Oh.
So that's just happened. So we'll have to see with new hair Nolan's got.
How old is Nolan, roughly?
11.
Or exactly?
I believe he's 11.
Oh, okay. I would expect you to say a little bit older with him cutting it if it'd been that long.
He did.
Just
and I went to dinner with my dad yesterday, my stepmom, and I asked if there was a reason.
Middle school recently.
That's what I thought. That's what was coming to my head, but that's not the answer I got. But I don't know. That's what I popped.
Nolan got a little hair on his chest. He decided he wanted to take the hair off the top.
I like it. All right, Brandon. So how do you make the number 1 disappear?
How do you make the number 1 disappear? Does it got something to do with number 8?
Nope. You just add a G and then it's gone.
That was a Jerry joke.
Yep.
That definitely was a Jerry joke.
That was decent. I thought it was
That
funny.
wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
I thought it was clever. And it took me a sec. I read it and I was like, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. So
you could almost say that the number 1 got repossessed.
You almost can. It did.
But
well, next week, Brandon, we might have to go into. We might either do it next week or the week after. We haven't decided yet, but we're going to have a Halloween episode, either leading up to Halloween or post-Halloween, talking about, costumes and what's going on and how do you deal with trick-or-treating and all of that.
I just bought my Halloween costume, Jerry, and it is funny.
You don't even like Halloween.
It's funny to me. It's funny to me, at least.
Okay, well, we'll go into that.
It's growing on me. Our work helps me get into it a little bit with things we have going on there. Like my team is really into it, and then as Bryce gets older, I kind of care about like making it fun for him too.
That's true. And speaking of
celebrate
work,
it
I
growing
won't
up.
even lie. Last year we did a competition, and my team we kind of threw up an egg or whatever you want to call it. We didn't show up. Because
I expect nothing.
We didn't show up. We didn't show
up.
up because we honestly didn't know kind of what to expect. And then all of a sudden, other departments showed out, including yours, and we kind of were like, "Wow, we are not letting this happen again." It's almost like you go to like the championship or something, and you get the floor wiped with you, and you're like, "No, we're gonna." After the game, you're standing there looking around, remembering that moment, so it don't happen again. So we're coming this year, just so you know. Our department's coming this year.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Oh, you're going to see it because it's going to be everywhere. And we own a large portion of the building. You have a small little section. We got a large portion. So you're going to see it all over.
Hey, if anything, that makes it easier on me.
It does. But you're still going to see us everywhere. It's kind of complicated.
Fine with it.
But anyways, Brandon, for all of you listening to us, if you haven't already, like us on all the social media stuff. Tell all your friends about us. Post us out there. Tell people to listen. For people that are expecting, people that already have kids, doesn't matter. And let us know what you think. We love hearing from each and every one of you. But until next time, I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you've been listening to Dad Jokes.